Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so in the high-stakes world of international business, fluctuating currencies are just a fact of life, right? A company's hard-earned profits can literally vanish overnight simply due to some unexpected movement in the foreign exchange market. But today, we're going to master the exact toolkit you need to defend your bottom line. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll be hitting 5 key areas: the actual threat of FX risk, some simple fixes like timing and netting. Then we'll dive into forward exchange contracts, how to calculate cross rates, and finally, we'll unpack the money market hedge. I want you to think about this for a second. What happens when your money just changes value overnight? An unexpected currency shift acts like a massive financial storm rolling in. If you're doing business internationally, the value of what you owe, or, what you're owed, is constantly shifting right beneath your feet. Well, that is exactly where hedging comes in. It's essentially your defensive toolkit totally designed to eliminate that uncertainty and lock in your expectations. It's how smart businesses ensure that a sudden drop in a currency's value doesn't completely wipe out their profit margins before a transaction is even finalized. All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, the threat of FX risk. Let's look at the real-world stakes here. Let's put this into perspective. Imagine you're an Italian company and you're expecting a payment of 5 million yen. Now, at an exchange rate of 135 yen to the euro, that 5 million was worth over 37,000 euros. Great, but by the time the payment actually hits your account, the rate drops to 150 yen per euro. Suddenly, your income shrinks to just over 33,000 euros. You did absolutely nothing wrong in your core business, but you lost nearly 4,000 euros just waiting for the invoice to clear. Crazy, right?
Okay, moving on to Section 2, we'll look at some simple fixes, specifically timing and netting, to build up your foundational defense.
Before you even think about touching complex banking derivatives, you've got to look at your own operations. You can actually protect your margins just by manipulating the timing of your payments. For example, if you expect the euro to get stronger against your home currency, you use a strategy called leading, basically paying a French supplier right now, early, before that euro gets more expensive. On the flip side, if you think a currency is going to weaken, you use lagging. You delay that payment as long as humanly possible, letting the currency get cheaper before you have to buy it. Then we have netting. And this is brilliant because it acts like a magical internal canceling mechanism, shrinking your total risk exposure before you ever need a financial derivative. If you have overlapping cash flows, actually just think of it as money coming in and money going out in the exact same foreign currency. You just use the incoming cash to pay the outgoing bills. By matching, say, a $400,000 receipt against a $600,000 payment, you perfectly eliminate the exchange risk on that $400,000. Boom. Now you're only left managing a much smaller net exposure of $200,000. Next up, Section 3, forward exchange contracts. This is where we start locking in future rates. So what happens when simple timing and netting just aren't quite enough? Well, that's when we turn to the banks for a forward contract. Banks will actually use the interest rate differences between two countries to quote you a totally guaranteed rate today for a transaction that isn't happening for months. You tell them the amount, the currency, the future date, and the bank locks in the exact exchange rate you'll get. The risk is completely transferred off your plate. But when you're calculating these forward rates, there's a rule you absolutely have to file away in your brain to avoid some costly math errors. It's all about how the currency is quoted. If you're dealing with a direct quote, it's super straightforward. You add the premium, deduct the discount. Simple. But if you are looking at an indirect quote, you have to flip it. You deduct the premium and add the discount. Getting this dynamic right is absolutely crucial. All right, Section 4, calculating cross rates. Let's talk about bridging currencies. I like to call the cross rate the ultimate middleman maneuver. It lets us bridge the gap between two totally disconnected currencies. Because, sometimes your bank just doesn't quote a direct rate for the specific pair you need. So what do? You use a heavily traded currency like the US dollar or the British pound as a stepping stone. Let's actually walk through the logic of this together. Say we want to link the Pakistani rupee to the US dollar, and we're going to use the British pound as our mathematical bridge. We know 105 rupees equals 1 pound. We also know 1 pound equals $1.50. Since they both equal exactly 1 pound, we can just set them equal to each other. 105 rupees equals $1.50. Divide 105 by 150, and there's our cross rate. $1 equals 70 rupees. It's just such an incredibly elegant solution. And that brings us to Section 5, our grand finale, the money market hedge. Let's synthesize our own rate. The whole essence of the money market hedge is bypassing derivatives entirely. You're not asking a bank for a forward contract anymore. Instead, you're using current interest rates and spot exchange rates to essentially build your own custom protective financial instrument from scratch. It sounds complicated, but the mechanism is pretty brilliant. Here's how you artificially create a forward rate today for money you're receiving later. First, you borrow the foreign currency you expect to receive in the future. Next, you convert it to your home currency today at the spot rate, and you just put it in the bank to earn interest. Months later, when your customer finally pays you, you just use their payment to clear that initial foreign loan. You have completely sidestepped any future exchange rate fluctuations.
So if you run those exact steps for, say, an $800,000 receipt, boom, you lock in a highly satisfying, definitive, effective forward rate. By crunching the math on the eventual dollar amount versus the pounds accumulated in your deposit account, you secure a rate of $1.7682 to the pound. And just like that, your transaction is entirely immune to whatever the market does next.
Now, what if you owe foreign currency instead of receiving it? Well, you simply flip the whole process in reverse. You borrow your home currency, buy the foreign currency today, and deposit it in a foreign account. It just sits there securely earning interest until the exact day your invoice is due. It perfectly neutralizes the currency storm. So, wrapping up this explainer, yes, international trade is packed with wild volatility. But as we've just seen, you literally have the exact tools you need to protect your business. Whether you're leading or lagging payments, netting out your exposures, locking in rates with forward contracts, or constructing your own money market hedges, you absolutely have the power to mitigate this risk. The foreign exchange market is always going to fluctuate, for sure. But with this toolkit, your success doesn't have to. So I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder. Will you let your profit margins be dictated by the daily whims of global exchange rates? Or are you going to step up and take control of your financial destiny?